It was supposed to be just another Thursday. I had been with the department for over 20 years. By now, most things didn't faze me. Blood, bodies, screams, missing kids, seen it all, lived through worse. But the day that file landed, or didn't land, on my desk, something changed. I didn't know it then. I wish I had. The evidence room was quiet, too quiet for 8:15 a.m. I remember the fluorescent buzz overhead. I'd gone in to pull the records on the Keller Street homicide. Routine double. Everything should have been logged. But it wasn't. The file wasn't there. Not just missing. Erased. Like it never existed. No intake. No reports. No crime scene photos. Nothing in the logs. Nothing in digital records. Just the scent of cold coffee and a faint chemical tang of cleaning fluid lingering in the air. I stared at the empty spot on the shelf labeled K 4521A, where the Keller file should have been. Something in my stomach twisted. I stepped out into the hallway, waved down Cassidy. Rookie, barely 6 months in, always jumpy. "You touched the Keller file?" I asked. He looked puzzled. "What Keller file?" I didn't answer. Just walked past him and back to my office. My gut had started its slow churn, a familiar feeling. I opened my desk drawer. I knew I had printed my copy of the preliminary notes, just in case. I always did that. Old habits. But that drawer was empty too. My hands froze. There's losing evidence, and then there's erasure. What scared me wasn't the missing paper. It was the feeling I was being rewritten. I called archives, asked for any backup logs on K 4521A. They said that case number never existed. I stared at the phone like it might give me a different answer if I held it long enough. Then I got in a car and drove. The Keller Street house, 2 stories, red brick, wide lawn, cracked pavement. Still cordoned off with faded yellow tape. I ducked under and pushed open the front door. It creaked the way old bones do. It had been a bloodbath. That much I remembered. A couple in their 40s, brutally murdered. Husband's throat slashed open. Wife's body found in the bathtub. Wrists slit vertically like someone wanted her to suffer slow. We had no suspects, no motives. But I remember the look on the wife's face. Eyelids open, lips parted. Like she was about to scream when she died. That face never left me. But today something was off. There were no signs of struggle. No blood. No tape outlines. No damn bodies. The house looked like it had been cleaned and lived in. Framed photos sat on the mantel. Fresh flowers in a vase. A baby bottle on the kitchen counter. I stepped back in horror. My pulse punched against my throat. Then came the sound. A baby crying upstairs. I reached for my holster, but I had left my gun in the car. Habit from when I'm not expecting threats. Foolish mistake. Slowly, I walked up the stairs, each creak sounding like a scream waiting to happen. The crying stopped. I reached the top. The hallway was dim, the air heavy. Door to the master bedroom was half open. I pushed it gently. Inside, nothing. No baby. No crib. Just a wide bed, unmade, and a mirror facing the door. But here's what froze me. In a mirror, I saw myself, but I wasn't alone. Standing behind me was a figure. Dark, unmoving, almost human, but not quite. I spun around. Nothing. When I looked back at the mirror, the figure was still there. That's when the whisper came. "Why did you leave me?" It was a woman's voice. Familiar. I stumbled backward, out of the room, nearly falling down the stairs. Out the door, back into daylight. My hand was shaking so hard, I dropped my keys, trying to open the car. When I finally got in and locked the doors, I sat there panting, heart clawing at my chest like it wanted out. Who was the woman? Why was the file gone? And why did I hear my dead wife's voice in that house? Back at the station, I didn't speak. I couldn't. I opened my drawer again. Still empty. But now, there was something new. A note. On unmarked paper. No handwriting, just block letters. Case K, 4521, a continues. Find the victim. Before they find you. I stared at it for a long time. Something inside me cracked, like an old, rusted pipe giving way under pressure. I wasn't chasing a killer anymore. I was chasing a memory that didn't want to be remembered. And something was chasing me back. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my kitchen, lights off, the note lying in front of me like a loaded weapon. Find a victim before they find you. Over and over I read it, the words pressing deeper each time. But which victim? The Keller case? My wife. The baby I heard crying in that impossible house. By sunrise, I had made a decision. If this was a case trying to erase itself, I needed to go where all cases end, the morgue. The basement of the city coroner's office has always smelled like ammonia and secrets. It's cold, sterile, and quiet. Not the peace kind of quiet, the waiting kind. The kind where things hide between heartbeats. I knew the night coroner on duty. Javier always had a cigarette tucked behind his ear, even though he hadn't smoked in 6 years. You back on that Keller thing? He asked as I stepped into the hallway. I stopped. You remember that? He blinked. Of course. 2 bodies. Real mess. Wife had defensive wounds, husband didn't. Weird one. I need the reports. He frowned. Didn't you already pull them last week? My breath hitched. No, I said slowly. The file's gone. Digital and paper. Records wiped. It's like it never existed. Javier's hand froze on the door to the cold storage. He looked at me long. You ever hear of the Lockhart incident? Javier unlocked drawer 17. I got the wife's fingerprints stored off-grid. Just in case. I don't know why. Felt wrong to let her disappear. Never told anyone. He slid the drawer open. Empty. He stared. I swear she was here. I stepped back. Check the logs, I said. He moved to the terminal, typed in her name manually. Michelle L. Bennett. Nothing. He tried the case number. Nothing. He tried partial data. Cause of death, time of intake, time of exam. Nothing. He looked at me, pale now. She's been wiped. Suddenly, every light in the room flickered. Once. Twice. Then all at once out. In the pitch black, I heard it again. The whisper. Why did you leave me? I spun, slammed my back against the cold drawer. Javier was whispering under his breath. No, no, no. This isn't real. This isn't. Then a voice, not mine, not Javier's, broke the silence. A woman's voice. I know what you did. The power surged back on. Standing in the hallway was a woman in a white hospital gown, soaked in something dark, maybe blood, maybe worse. Her eyes were blank, wide, accusing. Javier screamed and bolted through the side door. I froze. The woman pointed at me. You let them kill me. I blinked, and she was gone. The hallway was empty again. The drawer? Closed. I staggered out into the corridor, breathing like I'd run a mile. I grabbed the wall to steady myself. Something was rewriting reality around me, and the only way forward was deeper. I left the morgue and drove straight to the only man who might understand what was happening. Detective Grayson, retired. Grayson had cracked the Salt Lake serial case. 22 victims. Took down a cannibal once. He'd seen things I didn't want to know, but he'd always said something strange. Not all cold cases stay cold. Some thaw and bite. I found him sitting on his back porch, sipping coffee from a chipped mug that said, "Trust no one." When he saw me, he raised a brow. You finally got one of those cases? I sat beside him, silent. He nodded. They come in cycles. Every 7 years or so, case files vanish. Memories get foggy. Victims come back, sometimes angry, sometimes just lost. What is it? I asked. He looked at me like he was about to lie. Then he didn't. We call it the Hollow Protocol. Unofficial term. A layer under our system. Deep AI cleanup tied to national security. Anytime something gets too twisted, too supernatural, or too close to the wrong truths, it gets buried. Who buries it? He smiled sadly. Not who. What? I didn't know what that meant. But I knew one thing. This wasn't just a case anymore. It was a haunting in the system. That night, I went home and opened the drawer again. The note was gone. In its place, the photograph of my wife, smiling, standing in front of the Keller house. But the date at the bottom was wrong. 3 weeks in the future. And in the background, through the upstairs window, I could see my own face, staring down, mouth open, screaming. The photo haunted me, not just because of what it showed, but because of what it meant. 3 weeks from now, I'd be in that house, screaming, watching my dead wife standing on the lawn like she belonged there. The date at the bottom wasn't smudged, either. Clear as ink. August 17th, 2025. Today was July 27th. That gave me exactly 21 days. 21 days to stop whatever was coming. The next morning, I parked outside the Keller Street house again. This time, it wasn't just about evidence. It was personal. The house was alive in a way I couldn't explain. It knew me. It had shown me things that didn't make sense. Voices, mirrors, photographs from the future. And now I had to go back inside. I brought my gun this time. And my flashlight. I wasn't going to let shadows sneak up on me again. The door opened easier than it should have. No creak. No resistance. It wanted me inside. The layout hadn't changed. Kitchen to the right. Living room forward. Staircase winding up like a coiled spine. But everything had a thin coat of dust now, like the house had gone into hibernation after our last encounter. I walked slowly, each footstep pressing deeper into the silence. In the living room, I saw them, the same photos I'd seen last time. Only this time, the people in them had no faces. Every picture had been blurred, erased, mouths smeared into ovals. Eyes gone, as if someone had painted over them with invisible ink. I picked one up. Turn it over. A message was scratched into the wood backing. You shouldn't have come back. I set it down gently, resisting the instinct to run. That's what the house wanted. Fear gave it power. But I wasn't leaving without answers. I went upstairs again, my hand hovering near the holster. Each stair groaned like it remembered me. When I reached the top, the air changed. It wasn't colder. It was thicker, like walking through molasses. Every step took effort. My legs felt like they were moving underwater. The master bedroom door stood open. The mirror inside was covered now, draped in a white cloth. I approached it slowly, pulled the cloth off. Nothing in the reflection. Not even me. Just the room, empty and still. Then, from behind me, a breath. Warm, wet, right against my neck. I spun, gun raised, nothing. The door slammed shut behind me. I ran to it, yanked the handle. It didn't move. It wasn't just locked. It was sealed. I pounded on the wood. Let me out. Silence. Then, the mirror began to ripple. Like water. I stared, backing up slowly, the gun still raised. From the depths of the glass, a figure emerged. Pale hands pressed against the inside of the mirror. A woman's face came next. Her face. Michelle Bennett. Only her eyes were missing. Hollow sockets stared out, unblinking, as her mouth moved without sound. Then the sound caught up. Her voice was inside my head. You buried me. I stepped back. No, I didn't. You closed the case before the blood dried. I filed the report. You walked away before checking the basement. The basement. I'd never gone down there. Not during the original investigation. Not now. The door behind me creaked open. The voice stopped. The mirror returned to stillness. Like it had never moved. I didn't hesitate. I ran down the stairs and into the kitchen. Found the basement door behind the fridge, half blocked, tucked into a corner I'd somehow missed before. I pulled it open. Pitch black. The smell hit me first. Rotting earth. Mold. And something worse. I stepped down slowly, flashlight flicking side to side. The stairs creaked, loud enough to announce every step to the grave. At the bottom, nothing. Just concrete, a few old tools, broken shelves. But then I saw the outline in the wall. A rectangle, cut clean, like a hidden door. I touched the edges. The wall gave way, swung open. And behind it, a room. Small, cramped, and lined with tapes. Hundreds of VHS tapes stacked neatly, labeled in thick red marker. Each with a name, each with a date. Some names I recognized, old victims, unsolved cases. Some are unknown, but one stood out. Michelle L. Bennett. Final recording. Do not view. I picked it up, held it like it might burn me. And behind the tapes, a body, wrapped in plastic. Head turned toward the wall, like it had been ashamed to die facing the room. I peeled back the plastic slowly. Her face. Michelle's. But her eyes open, and she was smiling. Mouth frozen in a grin that stretched too wide, like her skin didn't know where to stop. Suddenly, behind me, footsteps. Not human. Wet. Heavy. Drip. Drag. Drip. Drag. I turned. Shined the light. Nothing. Then a whisper. Play the tape. I didn't run. I brought the tape with me. And when I got back to my car, I slid it into the old portable player Grayson once gave me. The screen crackled. Static. Then Michelle. tied to a chair, crying. A shadow moved behind her. A man stepped forward. Not a man. Me. Looking directly into the camera. And smiling. I froze. There I was, on screen, standing behind Michelle, my hands resting gently on her shoulders like we were taking a family portrait. But the smile I wore, it wasn't mine. It was wider, sharper, like someone had put on my face. Michelle's eyes were red and swollen, her mouth trembling as she tried to speak. But every time she opened it, the image glitched. Her voice came out like radio static, broken syllables stitched together by screams. Daniel, it's not him. It's not you. He's wearing your... Then the screen went black. For a second, I thought the tape had ended. But then, a second recording began. Same room, same chair, but no Michelle. Now, the camera pointed straight at a mirror. The kind you see in interrogation rooms, two-way. On the other side was me, sitting calmly, hands folded, wearing the same shirt I had on right now. This wasn't from the past. This was happening live. I reached up to touch my chest. The same shirt, same buttons, same crease over the right shoulder. My heart dropped. The me on screen smiled. Slow, deliberate. Then he raised a finger and pointed, not at the mirror, but through it, through the camera, at me. You're not supposed to be watching this yet. I slammed the eject button. The tape hissed, chewed by the machine. Smoke rose from the slot. The player was dead. I drove. I didn't know where, just away. Away from the house, from the tape, from the thing that wore my face. But every time I passed a reflective surface, rearview mirror, store window, chrome bumper, I saw it. The other me. Watching. Grinning. Sometimes waving. The city no longer felt like mine. Street signs had changed slightly. Birch Avenue was now Bitch Evin. The letters rusted, flickering as if trying to correct themselves. A man walked his dog across the street, but the leash went slack, trailing into thin air. No dog, just the leash moving on its own. I pulled into a gas station on 12th. Hope for light, people, normality. Inside, the clerk didn't look up. I grabbed coffee, splashed it on my hand to remind myself what pain felt like. Real. Solid. It burned. Good. When I reached the counter, the clerk finally spoke. Pump. I shook my head. No. Just this. He stared a second too long. You look different from last time. What? He blinked. Never mind. He rang me up. Tape guy, right? I paused. What did you say? He scratched his nose. That's what she called you. Written on the label, Victim 0. Do not play. I drove back to Grayson's. He met me at the door with a rifle. Something's wrong with the sky, he said. I looked up. It was night, but not dark. The stars were too close, like someone had drawn them on the inside of a dome and dropped it over the city. I handed him the cassette. He stared at it like I'd just dug up a cursed artifact. Where did you get this? He asked. I told him. He nodded, then disappeared inside. When he came back, he was carrying an old tape recorder. We sat on the porch. Cicadas buzzed too loud, like their pitch had been turned up to 11. He pressed play. Static. Then breathing. Then a child's voice. Is this where you wanted to scream? Then silence. Then the sound of footsteps. Then a man's voice. My voice. Say your name. I don't want to. Say it. You said I wouldn't have to again. Say it. Or they'll take your face, too. The child began to cry. Daniel, please. Grayson hit stop. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then, you know what this is? I shook my head. Victim 0. The one that starts the cycle. There's always one. Every 7 years, the system glitches and the shadows get through. They infect one case. One detective. One victim. That's how it begins. I looked down at the tape. So who was the first? He looked at me. Eyes grim. You. I couldn't breathe. I don't remember anything. Exactly. That's the point. They erase you. Leave only the hollow pieces. And then they recast you into new stories. New horrors. You think you're solving a mystery. But really, you're replaying your own corruption. I stumbled backward. The world felt warped. My memories blurred. Was my wife ever real? Was the Keller house ever there? Had I ever left that room? Then, in the distance, I saw something moving toward us. Figures. Pale. Walking slow. Dragging something between them. Grayson raised his rifle. They're here. I turned toward my car, heart pounding. The tape still sat on the porch. I grabbed it, got in, and drove off before the first scream echoed behind me. When I got home, I sat in the dark. I opened my desk drawer again. This time, the photograph was gone. In its place, a case file, labeled, Case Within the Case. Daniel M. Gray. Primary subject inside was a photo of me, taken from behind, standing outside the Keller house. With the caption, Next recording, August 17th, 2025. By now, sleep had become a memory. I had stopped trying to piece things together in a linear way. Time wasn't working properly anymore. Moments looped. Faces changed. Truth melted into suggestion, and suggestion hardened into paranoia. The case file labeled me as the primary subject. But subject of what? I kept flipping through the file. Pages were handwritten, but not by me. The penmanship was sharp, clinical, almost mechanical. Each sentence made my skin crawl, not because of what it said, but because it knew things I hadn't told anyone. Subject demonstrates a high tolerance for reality distortion. Last known location, Keller house basement. Timestamp exceeds projected collapse window. Repeated loop cycle, 5 and counting. Collapse window, loop cycle. I had read enough horror in my life to know when I was being watched by something smarter than me. Something that enjoyed rewriting my memories like drafts in a manuscript. That's when the scratching started. Soft at first, from the floor beneath my desk. Not rodents, not pipes. Rhythmic, deliberate. Morse code. I didn't know how I knew that, but I did. I scrambled for a pen and paper and began writing it down, dot by dot, line by line. When it was done, I translated it. One word, remember. Then again, louder, remember. And again, remember. Until it was no longer dots and dashes, but a voice clawing through the hardwood, snarling from below. I ripped the rug up. There, hidden beneath a warped panel, was a trapdoor I'd never seen before. In my own home. Un should verán. I should have burned the house to the ground. But something pulled me forward. Not curiosity, not courage. It felt like obligation, like the floor had been waiting for me to ask the right question. The hinges groaned as the trapdoor opened, releasing a wave of cold air that smelled like earth, iron, and something far more ancient. A ladder descended into black. I grabbed a flashlight, took one last breath, and climbed down. The ladder was longer than it should have been, 40, maybe 50 feet, as if the house sat atop a vertical tunnel I never knew existed. At the bottom, a narrow hallway carved from dirt and stone, just wide enough to crawl. Carved by hand. Fingernails had left grooves in the walls. Scratches. Screams frozen in mud. As I moved forward, I began hearing them. Whispers. Layered. Male. Female. Childlike. Ageless. Not in English. Not any language I knew. But I understood. They weren't talking to me. They were talking about me. This is the one who saw too much. The tape guy. Loop breaker. Subject M. Variant 6. Failed reset. My flashlight flickered. No. Please. Not now. I banged it against my palm. It went out. I was swallowed in black. Then, light returned. But not from my flashlight. From the walls. They glowed faintly, revealing something that made my stomach twist. Embedded in the walls were faces. Human. Eyes sealed shut, mouths open in a final gasp. Skin stretched thin like wax, fused into the dirt. Each one moaning. Muffled. Painful. Endless. I crawled faster. I couldn't take it. Then I saw the end of the tunnel. A room. Low ceiling. Flickering candlelight. And a figure standing in the middle. Back turned. Wearing a long coat. Dark hair. The woman from the gas station. She turned slowly when I entered. And I saw her face. It was Michelle. But older. Weathered. Broken. One eye clouded over. The other filled with fire. Daniel, she said. You're almost there. I shook my head. You're dead. She laughed. Bitter. Hollow. I was. In loop 3. But they kept copying me. Over and over. Making me die different ways. You watched it once. But you didn't stop it. You watched it 6 times. I don't remember. They made sure of that. She stepped aside. Behind her, a table. A reel-to-reel machine. Spinning. Recording. And beside it, a body. Lying motionless. It was me, strapped down, mouth sewn shut, eyes forced open by clamps. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. Which one of us is the copy? She asked. I backed away, hit the wall. The embedded faces screamed in unison. Michelle leaned in. The tape's still running, she whispered. But you can still stop it. She held up a knife. You just have to cut the voice out. I stared at her. She offered it to me. If you silence the original, she said, the loop ends. I took the knife, approached the body. It looked like me, felt like me, smelled like sweat and fear and blood. But it was motionless, silent. Then just as I raised the blade, its eyes moved. It looked at me. Don't. The voice came not from its mouth, but from mine. I dropped the knife, stumbled back. Michelle was gone. The reel stopped spinning, and the voice returned. You weren't supposed to find this place. Then came the roar. From beneath the room, a sound like a million screams being funneled through a single throat. The dirt cracked, the walls split, and from below it rose. A creature of faces, built from every victim I'd ever seen. Their mouths opened in unison. Remember. And then, everything went black. I woke up in my bed, fully dressed. The knife on my nightstand, the case file gone, but burned into the wall, scratched deep by fingernails. A victim who isn't dead can still testify. I didn't go to the precinct the next day. I knew what I'd find. Either it wouldn't exist at all, or I'd find people pretending like I never worked there. That's how this thing operated. The deeper I went, the more it rewrote the world around me. But there was still one person I hadn't talked to. Detective Marcus Hale, my former partner. We worked together for 9 years before he took early retirement after a breakdown. Said something was following him through the paperwork. We all thought he'd cracked under pressure. Now I knew better. If anyone would remember the original Keller case, or know where my missing memory ended and someone else's script began, it was him. I found Hale in a trailer parked just outside the city limits. The yard was overgrown, filled with broken furniture and rusted children's toys. The kind of place time forgets. I knocked once, then again. No answer. The third knock pushed the door open. The air inside was still. Stale. Old sweat and mold. But the place was lived in, dishes in the sink, TV still on, static flickering across the screen. Marcus! I called out. No answer. Then, from the back room, a soft sound. A tape rewinding. I followed it. The bedroom was dark, lit only by the glow of a VCR player and an old CRT monitor. Stacks of tapes were piled on the floor, labeled in handwriting I recognized instantly. My own. But I hadn't written these. Not yet. Tapes labeled, The Witness Who Didn't Blink, Loop 7. False Confession, Keller Variant. Rejected and One, set apart from the rest. The Missing Partner. Final playback. I turned to the bed. Marcus was there, sitting upright, eyes open, but he wasn't breathing, not blinking. A dried trail of blood ran from his nose down to his chin. In his hand, a remote. He had paused the tape just before the end. I pressed play. The screen flickered. Marcus sat in front of the camera, a younger version of himself, still sharp, still angry. If you're watching this, I'm probably already erased. Not dead, erased. There's a difference. They don't kill you. They overwrite you. Like bad code. He looked off screen, nervous. Daniel, this is for you. You next. You've always been next. The Keller case wasn't a case. It was a test pattern. A simulation to see who could survive full recursion. He held up a folder. I recognized it. My personnel file. You passed. Barely. That's why they keep rebooting you. Over and over. Each time, a little more removed. A little less real. He leaned closer to the camera. You've seen things you're not supposed to. You've seen behind the mirrors. Heard the voices in the recordings. Found the basement. That means you're close. The screen began to warp. Static cut through his voice. Then he said it. The next part, you won't like. The footage jumped. Now Marcus sat across from me. But not me. The other me. The version that smiled too wide. Wore my face like a costume. They were in an interrogation room. And I was holding a folder. Let's go over it again, the other me said. Tell me what you remember about Keller. Marcus shook his head. I already told you. The house talks. The tapes rewrite. You aren't Daniel. You're the thing that comes after. The other me smiled. That's not very polite. He stood, walked behind Marcus, and whispered something we couldn't hear. Then the video cut off. I turned to Marcus. He hadn't moved. In his other hand was a crumpled note. I pried it out carefully. For words, written in shaky ink. Bury the original tape. My mouth went dry, because that tape, the one still spinning in the VCR, was labeled in fresh ink. Case within the case. Master copy. I didn't know what burying the tape would do. Would it stop the loop? Or start a worse one? But I knew this, whatever was wearing my face was trying to finish something, and that tape was part of it. I pulled it from the machine. The second I did, the TV shattered from the inside. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the trailer. I ran, coughing, holding the tape like a burning brand. As I reached the car, I looked back. Marcus's trailer had gone dark. Then it blinked, in and out, like an old film reel stuttering. And then it was gone. Nothing but a patch of scorched earth where it once stood. I drove without direction, not toward a church, or a fire pit, or a landfill. I followed instinct. Ended up at an old cemetery on the outskirts of town. Forgotten. Overgrown. The kind of place no one visits unless they've run out of answers. I chose a spot beneath a dying willow tree. Dug with my hands. Sweat and blood mixed with dirt. When the hole was deep enough, I dropped the tape in. I hesitated for only a second before covering it. But the second I did, the wind stopped. The air grew thick. The shadows lengthened. And all around me, voices began to whisper. Not angry. Not scared. Relieved. Freed. I thought I'd done it. I thought it was over. But when I returned home, there was a new tape on my doorstep. No label. Just a sticky note. 3 words. Final edit pending. I played it. Static. Then the Keller house. The front door. And a man walking toward it. From behind. Wearing my coat. Carrying a shovel. And then, he turned. Smiled. And whispered into the camera, "You buried the wrong copy." You know the feeling when you realize you're the suspect in your own investigation? That sudden click. The cold sinking in your gut, like your insides just turned to stone. That's where I was. Watching the tape of myself, or something using me, carry a shovel toward the Keller house, smiling like the world was an inside joke I hadn't been told yet. You buried the wrong copy. It echoed in my head like a gunshot in a locked room. I should have felt confused, but instead, I felt recognition. Like part of me already knew this had happened. Maybe multiple times. I turned off the TV, sat in silence. The house creaked around me like it was listening. The tape still spun in the player. The reel ticked softly, counting seconds that shouldn't exist. I got up and walked to my bedroom, pulled the old caseboard out of the closet, the one I hadn't touched in years. Pinned to it were notes, photos, fragments from past cases. Cases I couldn't clearly remember working. Some were faded. Others were freshly printed. Some had names scratched out entirely. But one thread connected them all. Me. I was there. Somewhere. Always. In surveillance footage. In background reflections. In recorded 911 calls where the caller would suddenly whisper, "He's already inside." In one photo from a 2018 homicide scene, I stood outside the Keller house wearing a long black coat. The timestamp said July 27, 2018. Exactly 7 years ago. Today, I circled it in red. 7-year cycle. Like Grayson said, every 7 years, one case gets rewritten. One detective gets recast. This time, that detective was me. And maybe it always had been. I went back to my desk, laid out everything I had. The original Keller file, now back in my possession somehow. The Michelle Bennett case photos, the VHS labeled master copy, the one I buried or thought I did. The faceless photo of my wife standing in front of the house, but now something new had appeared beneath the photo. I hadn't written it. It looked burned into the paper. No call dies clean. I didn't know what that meant. Not yet. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Silence. Then, Agent Daniel Michael Gray. Confirm voice recognition. What? This line is secured. You are being activated. Who is this? You filed case K 4521, 7 years ago. You are now re-entering phase resolution. I looked at the screen. Still no caller ID. Say your clearance word. I nearly hung up, but my mouth moved without my permission. Cicada. The voice on the other end changed. Colder. Acknowledged. You are now primary active. Proceed to resolution site. Upload begins in 12 hours. Do not engage or double. Repeat. Do not engage or double. Then a click. The line went dead. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. Because the voice was right about one thing. There was a double. And he was no longer content with mirrors and tapes. At 3:14 a.m., my front door opened on its own. No wind. No power outage. No footsteps. Just an invitation. I walked to the hallway. He stood there. Me. Same face. Same coat. Same scar above the left eye. But his eyes, they weren't mine. They were older. They'd seen too much. He smiled. And it wasn't malicious. It was almost tired. You're getting close, Danny. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. He stepped forward, slowly. They'll make you choose soon. Which version do you want to be? The one who forgets everything, or the one who remembers too much? I raised the gun. He didn't flinch. Won't help. I fired. The bullet went through him like he was fog. No blood. Just static. He tilted his head. You're not there yet. Then he turned and walked straight through the wall. The next morning, I found a new file in my inbox at the station. No sender. Just a folder named Gray_Dossier_X7. Inside were case summaries. Hundreds of them. All labeled Gray as lead investigator. But they weren't real. Some were from other cities, other countries, places I'd never been. Others were from years before I was born. Same name, same face, over and over. And the cases? All the same pattern. No surviving witnesses, evidence deleted within 72 hours, final reports sealed by unidentified authority, lead investigator disappears from public record. I scrolled to the final document. One page. It simply read, case within the case, final round initiated. Subject Gray 7.13 must confront mirror entity. Escalation authorized. And beneath that, date, August 17th. 2025, my breath caught. That was the day from the photograph. Every clue pointed to me. Every victim's last word was my name. Every voice on every recording eventually turned into mine. I wasn't solving the mystery. I was the mystery. The loop wasn't just memory loss or haunting. The loop was identity collapse. Every 7 years, I was rebuilt. Each time less me, more them, whatever they were. Then I heard the sound again. Soft. Mechanical. A tape loading itself in the player. The TV flickered on without power. And there, on the screen, a room I'd never seen before. Walls lined with filing cabinets. Each drawer labeled Gray, 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 Gray. Endless. And in the middle, a chair. Empty. Waiting. I don't know what comes next. But I know where I have to go. Back to the Keller house. Back to the beginning. Back to whatever version of me never left that basement. Because if every clue points to me, then I need to figure out which me they're pointing to. Before someone else does. I stood outside the Keller house again. Gray sky, just like last time. 7 years ago, I had come here chasing shadows. A missing woman, a burnt diary, whispers on tapes that shouldn't exist. But now I wasn't chasing the mystery. I was walking into myself. The front door opened without a creak. I stepped into silence. The house hadn't aged a day. Same stale air. Same faint scent of wet earth and burnt wood. Every time I've been here, through reports, tapes, or hallucinations, I've been just outside the center of something. Tonight, I had to go into the core. There was no light, yet I could see. Like the house was remembering itself for me. The hall stretched longer than it should have. A shape appeared in the hallway mirror. I froze. My face, but older. Dead eyes. Skin pale. Something was moving beneath the surface of the glass, twitching in time with my breath. I leaned closer. The reflection whispered, "You buried me alive." I touched the glass, cold as a morgue drawer. A hand shot out and grabbed mine. I screamed, but it didn't pull. It pressed something into my palm. When I looked, a key. Old. Brass. Engraved with one word. Subject. The cellar door was waiting. Same one from the photo. The one behind my faceless wife. I unlocked it. The stairs groaned under my weight, like they hadn't been stepped on in decades, or maybe they had been by other versions of me. At the bottom was the door I had seen in the surveillance tapes. It opened without resistance. Inside, the basement was lined with old cathode ray TVs stacked in towers. All were on, playing grainy black and white footage. Every screen showed me, in different places, different years, different uniforms, sometimes smiling, sometimes holding a gun, sometimes holding a corpse. In the center of the room sat the chair, the one from the last tape, empty no longer. A man sat there, cuffed, face down, clothes shredded, skin bruised. At first, I thought it was a victim. Then he looked up. Same face. My face. Took you long enough, he said, voice raw. Which version are you? 04? 11? Or that sorry copy from 25? I couldn't answer. He laughed. Doesn't matter. They always send another one down here. We're all just mirror masks. Ghost coats. You think this is the first time? I stepped closer. What is this place? He looked around. Call it the sink. A place where memory goes to drown. The lights on the TVs flickered. Each screen began to bleed red. One by one, the recordings changed. Now they showed murders. Dozens. Hundreds. All by me. They erased the records upstairs, the man in the chair said. But down here, we remember. Every buried file, every lost witness, every scream they edited out of the reports. You think you're a detective? He hissed. You're a containment unit. I backed away. He started laughing again, manic, broken. Go on. Ask the big question. I clenched my fists. Why me? He grinned wide. Because you were perfectly forgettable. A face that fades. A voice that blends in. You were never meant to make it this far, Gray. You were supposed to lose the trail. Forget the details. Drink yourself to death and vanish. The TV screamed. I grabbed the man and shouted, Who's doing this to us? He leaned forward, nose touching mine. Eyes hollow. You are. Then his body collapsed into ash. A door I hadn't seen opened on its own. Beyond it, another basement. But this one was clinical. Steel walls, white floors, and hundreds of bodies. Each in a glass tube. Each wearing my face. Frozen in different expressions, screaming, laughing, weeping. I walked past them, shaking. Some wore my old jackets, my old badge numbers, my scars, my smile, versions of me that never left the loop. One tube was empty, waiting, labeled, Gray 7.13, current active at the far end of the room. A terminal blinked. Enter final memory key. I still held the key from the mirror. I slid it into the port. The room shuddered. All the screens in the chamber turned on at once and played one final file. It was a recording of me, standing outside the Keller house 7 years ago. But I wasn't alone. Behind me stood a man in a white coat. Face blurred, voice clear. This one's unstable. If he starts digging, the others will follow. Another voice replied, Let him. A little horror keeps the structure intact. If he breaks, we'll just reset. Then the video zoomed in on the clipboard in the man's hand. The title on the form, Case Within the Case Files. Program Gray / Iteration 47 My Whole Life. Was just an experiment. A case that never ended. Because I was the case. The house wasn't haunted. I was. Somewhere upstairs, I heard the front door open. Another me arriving. Just like I had. But this time, I wasn't going to let it reset. This time, I'd leave a mark. Something they couldn't erase. Not this time. I moved like a man underwater, every step through the sterile chamber heavier than the last. Behind me, rows of glass tubes hummed, the cold chorus of a factory that had been building me over and over again. But what was I now? Another clone? A memory? A broken iteration in a long string of programmed nightmares? I didn't know, but I knew one thing. I couldn't let the next version wake up. I reached the control panel. Its lights flickered red, as if sensing my rebellion. A prompt pulsed. Begin reset cycle. I hesitated. Then I saw the countdown start on its own. 60:00, 59:59, 59:58. I slammed the terminal. Override. I barked. Manual command input. The screen glitched, text stuttering, and then it responded, command recognized. Enter admin key. I didn't have one, but I had something better, the truth. I typed blindly, fingers racing across the keyboard. You can't erase what remembers itself. I'm not a case number. I am the result. Let them see. The system lagged, groaned, then a low beep, and the countdown froze. A new screen appeared. Are you sure you want to initiate broadcast? I didn't know what that meant, but it felt right. I hit yes. The machines around the room screamed. Monitors in every tube turned on. Images flashed from my life. From each version's life. Crime scenes, unsolved cases, victims silenced, truths buried, all played at once. All the secrets they'd tried to hide, unleashed. Then the floor cracked. A deep rumble shook the chamber. The walls started bleeding, not with blood but with static. Reality itself was breaking. And in the center of the storm, I saw her, Evelyn, alive, standing in the hallway at the top of the cellar stairs, wearing the same dress from the surveillance footage. Eyes wide, no emotion, like a puppet caught between worlds. I stumbled toward her. Evelyn, I asked, voice cracking. She blinked. You're almost free, she whispered. But they're coming. They always do. They'll build again. Reset again. You can't stop the program. Not completely. Then help me break it, I said. She shook her head slowly. No, but I can show you who's still writing it. She held out a small flash drive. It glowed faintly. I took it. Suddenly, the door behind her burst open. Footsteps. Dozens. White coats. Men and women. No faces. Just smooth masks and the sound of humming electricity. They moved toward us. I turned, but Evelyn was gone. In her place, a staircase leading upward, flooded with light. I ran. The Keller house above was gone. In its place, a long white corridor, each side lined with glass windows. And behind them, observers, typing, speaking into headsets, watching endless screens, all showing different me's in different cities, solving different crimes, making different mistakes. I screamed and slammed my fists on the glass. No one reacted. They couldn't see me. But then one observer turned, removed his headset, and looked me directly in the eyes. He was me, older, worn, and smiling. He held up a folder. I recognized the label. Case within the case files. Final report, he spoke. But I couldn't hear it. Just one word, barely readable from his lips. End. Then the corridor darkened. I opened my eyes, and I was in my office. Desk lamp on. Case files spread before me. Rain pattering the window. Normal. Too normal. I sat in silence, heart racing. Was it a dream? A psychotic break? Had I imagined the Keller house? Evelyn? The looping lives and labs underground? But then, my email dinged. One new message. No sender. No subject. Just one attachment. Truth_file_sequence.mov. I clicked. The footage was of me, walking into the Keller house, again and again. Iteration after iteration. Screaming, crying, fading. But the final shot was different. It was me standing in the burning lab, holding a flash drive, looking up into the camera, and saying, to whoever's watching this, I don't know who I am anymore. But I know what they're doing. Stop looking at the crimes. Start looking at the files. The video ended. On my desk now, the flash drive Evelyn gave me. It hadn't been there before. I picked it up. Engraved on its back. Last reset you. Outside, a knock. I turned to the door. My hand reached for my gun. I stood slowly. Then the knock came again. 3 slow knocks. Just like the tapes. I opened the door. No one was there. But on the floor was a new case file. Plain. White. Titled, The Case Within the Case, Live. I stepped outside. Rain falling. Street lights blinking. And in the distance, a familiar house. Waiting. Calling. Resetting. I didn't remember walking. I didn't remember leaving the office, locking the door, stepping into the rain-soaked night. But now here I was, standing again before the Keller house. No crime tape. No boarded windows. No signs of the chaos that had once unraveled within. It looked untouched, fresh, like it had never been entered, like I had never been here before. But I had, again and again. And this time, something inside me knew this was the last time. The door was slightly open. I pushed it. It creaked, exactly like it did in every version of the tapes. Same smell, same silence, same photo frames on the wall, only the faces blurred as if time refused to remember them. I moved slowly through the hall, my flashlight off. Everything was lit by some unnatural glow, as if memory itself was illuminating the space. At the end of the hallway, the basement door, still cracked open, still leading down to everything I thought I'd escaped. I descended the stairs, heart steady, breath even. There was no fear anymore, only inevitability. The cellar below had changed. Now it was a small room. One desk, one chair, one single, dull light bulb overhead. And on the desk, the final case file. White folder, labeled in black ink. Control subject, Detective Marsh. I opened it. Inside were transcripts of every word I'd spoken since the Keller house first appeared in my life. Dialogues from interviews, mutterings to myself, conversations I didn't even remember having. Then, at the bottom, a page titled Final Evaluation. It read, Subject, Marsh has demonstrated consistent instability once exposed to multi-layered realities. Despite repeated resets, subject retains fragments of memory that manifest in defiant behavior and narrative collapse. However, subject has achieved near-complete integration with case constructs, an unexpected anomaly. Proceed to final stage. Below the evaluation, one handwritten note in red. Let him finish it. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the room. Familiar. My own. If you're reading this, you've reached the end. There's nothing left for you in the records, detective. No more clues. No more ghosts. Just one question. Will you close the file or become the next one? A printer behind me whirred. I turned. A page slid out slowly. It was blank at first, but then letters appeared. Press your hand to the page to confirm case closure. I stared at it. This was it. The choice. I could leave, walk away, let all reset, lose everything I'd uncovered. Or I placed my hand on the page. It burned. The heat rushed through my palm, up my arm, into my chest, like a brand being sealed onto my very identity. Then the page turned black, and across it, a single word, transferred. The room disintegrated. Walls collapsed into digital fragments. The air turned into static. And suddenly, I was back in the office. Same desk, same lamp. But everything around me had changed. The city outside was different. The skyline twisted. Time unreadable. My reflection in the window, it wasn't mine. It was someone else. Someone new. Eyes unfamiliar. Wearing my badge. Sitting at my desk. The phone rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. I picked it up. Detective Marsh? A voice asked. I didn't answer. Because I wasn't him anymore. Or maybe I always had been. We've got a new one. A body. Same signs as the Keller case. Looks like it's starting again. I stare at the folder on the desk. White. Unlabeled. Empty. Waiting for me to fill it. Waiting for the next version of the story to begin. I hung up the phone. Stood. Put on my coat. And walked out the door. Into another version of a truth that refused to die. Looks like it's starting again. I stare at the folder on the desk. White. Unlabeled. Empty. Waiting for me to fill it. Waiting for the next version of the story to begin. I hung up the phone. Stood. Put on my coat. And walked out the door. Into another version of a truth that refused to die.